At FFPC, not all inflation is bad. When FFPC entered the high-stakes fantasy football arena in 2008, the grand prize of the FFPC Main Event was $75,000. Today, after 15-plus years of setting the industry standard, the FFPC Main Event has a $1 million grand prize. Since 2021, the FFPC Best Ball Tournament grand prize has tripled, and the Superflex Best Ball Tournament is now the largest contest of its kind in the world.
Follow along with the live draft board tonight and watch our pick-by-pick analysis as we call the action from the 2024 FFPC Pros versus Joes Moonshine League number 4. We're going to find out who's winning a 2025 FFPC Main Event squad tonight. We've got a great show for you. Ferrell, Elliott, Brandon Murchison are joining me here. I'm Eric Balkman. You know me from the HSFF Hour, the HSFF Show, and, of course, the Fantasy Football Players Championship. We are bringing you tonight the 4th of 6 special episodes for the FFPC Pros versus Joes, a competition that is pitting 6 industry pros against 6 FFPC Joes in each draft, the winner getting a shot at taking that $1 million grand prize next year for free. I want to bring in my first co-host tonight, ladies and gentlemen, as I'll bring up the board as well. You know him from the Woo Fantasy Podcast. He's a staff writer over at RotoBaller. You follow him on the X at Roto Superstar, and you saw him draft in this competition this past Tuesday. Please welcome back onto the program, Brandon Murchison. Brandon, welcome aboard, man.
Thank you very much. And you wanted the best, you got the best. We are back, ladies and gentlemen, to cover Pros versus Joes, the Moonshine division. I'm looking forward to it. Balky, great to be back on with you, man.
Always a pleasure to be joined by you too, for sure. And we are going to get into the action here shortly. Remember, you can always follow us on X at Eric Balkman, at HSFF Hour, at Roto Superstar, at RotoBaller as well. Check out Ferrell's Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship over at KFFSC.com. We'll be joined by him shortly as well. High Stakes Fantasy Football at gmail.com is where to send in all of your questions. We'll try to get to all the chat rooms questions, X posts, and emails throughout the show tonight. Thanks to our hard work of our producer and mutual friend Rob and audio engineer, my best friend Bryce, as we are now through one round here, ladies and gentlemen. I'll take you through it. The first overall pick was held by Josh Hayes over at RotoBaller, Brandon's cohort. He ends up taking Christian McCaffrey, number 1. Then you're looking at Daniel Wright and Geno Donnie, 2 guys that we just had on the HSFF Hour a couple of weeks ago. They go with CeeDee Lamb at the 102. Dan Williamson and Bradley Stalder from PlayerProfiler.com, the host of the Stack Hunters show, they end up going with Bijan Robinson at the 103. 104 is Sean Green and Michael Young, the FFPC Joes. They go with Breece Hall, so 3 running backs in the first 4 rounds, first 4 picks tonight. Jamar Chase goes to Bob Long, the founder of the Fantasy Football Expo, and of course, Big Guy Fantasy Sports. Tyreek Hill is going to go to Patrick and Tim Lynch at the 106 tonight. J.J. Zachariason, late round himself, takes Justin Jefferson. Amon-Ra St. Brown is the 8th pick tonight from Rob Cannon and Stephen Rucker, the FFPC Joes. Jeff Manns ends up going with Jonathan Taylor. You know him from FantasyGuru.com and, of course, SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. Jahmyr Gibbs is the 110 pick tonight by John Bauman and Gordon Chappell. They take Jahmyr Gibbs at the 110, followed by A.J. Brown to Estadio Fantasy's Mauricio Gutierrez, and then Garrett Wilson, the final pick tonight of the first round, the 112 to the longtime FFPC best ball drafter, Danny Mueller. We'll bring him in right now. You've probably already been registering over at KFFSC.com, the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship. He is the man, the myth, the legend, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. Welcome to the broadcast, Ferrell, Elliott.
Thank you, Balky and Brandon. How are you guys this evening?
We're doing excellent. Excited to kick off, week number 2 of Pros versus Joes, which is really fun. And once again, Brandon, we see no tight ends go in the first round tonight. And it's just, maybe it's because I've seen so many FFPC drafts over the years. It's still bizarre to see no purple in the first round of so many FFPC drafts this year. What do you make of that? I mean, does that mean that the elite tight end no longer exists, or is it because there's a ton of elite tight ends this year, and we're going to see why in the second round?
Yeah, I was very interested to see how the first round, especially the wrap, was going to turn out to play out in this draft tonight. I obviously, in Tuesday night draft, I was drafting from the 1-2 turn. I went with Trey McBride with the 2-1 pick at the that spot. And just to watch, and now that we're seeing the board kind of play out as we were talking about it, here comes the tight end run. And that's kind of what you're looking at with that. You're playing at the end, the 1-2 turn, or even the 11th pick. You have to kind of really hedge your bet and decide what playing the scoring format you want to look. Hey, I need to get into these tight ends. These guys are getting that tight end premium scoring. And you want to be on the front end of a run, like I mentioned on the draft the other night. You want to be on the front end of a run instead of chasing a position that's very, very vital with this scoring format.
Isn't that the truth? Because if you're at 11-12 and you don't tight end here, you better get ready to overdraft, or draft him right at value, Evan Ingram. And maybe somebody jumps and takes him before. Now you're looking at Ferguson, and now you're thinking about, does Kittle have a better production in the year? And okay, maybe you wait a little longer here because in this format we're going to end up with 3 tight ends. But nevertheless, it's a long wait to get those purple stickers on the board.
We want to mention, too, this is a best ball slim format, 20 rounds, set it and forget it, and there is no prize for second place in this tight end premium scoring. First place will get a free entry into the main event next year. That is it. I didn't get a chance to talk to you, Brandon, after your Pros versus Joes draft on Tuesday. How confident do you feel in that team winning an FFPC main event entry next year?
I feel pretty good. After the draft was completed the other night, the way things played out, I didn't feel like I was really, reaching too far out for players that I wanted to get on this roster. Obviously, you mentioned it's best ball format, so I felt like I let the draft come to me. I was able to get a lot of the guys that I was targeting coming into the draft, and the way that I put that roster together, I was getting Joe Burrow a little bit later down the board. I'm getting a fantastic quarterback to kind of be the head of this team, and I feel like that team's going to have a really good shot for the 2024 season in that division.
I recall that it was my favorite team, and I believe, Balky, that even Terp, after initial restraint, because he was in love with Team 4, but after initial restraint, he jumped on the bus with us.
Did he really?
I think he did. Of course,
I'm going to say that myself, yes.
Yes, there you go. Because, when Terp endorses you, that's something you don't forget in your lifetime.
That's true. That's very, very true. Very true. We are powering through the second round here, and Brandon alluded to it. We have 5 tight ends go within 6 picks. The only one that stuck out as a non-tight end in the middle here of the second round was the Lynches, Patrick and Tim, going with Drake London to pair with Tyreek Hill instead. Ferrell, you always like drafting. I think you always say you always like drafting in the middle, or is that the one that you hate? Right now, I'm getting mixed up.
I'm warm to the middle in what I'm experiencing this year. I think I might love the ends just because I can condense all my thinking into a crash course, and then I can sit back and try to see where it's going to go. But I've been very happy with the players. Brandon said something about how the players dropped to him, how they came to him. And I've been on both places in the early slow drafts in the main event, both 12 and towards the middle. And I don't necessarily prefer a spot this year. I haven't had any McCaffrey because I sure haven't been number 1, but hopefully that will come before the season's over.
We are powering through the second round. I know that some of the guys in the chat they're talking about Kyle Pitts going in the second here to Bob Lung over from Big Guy Fantasy Sports. ADP of Kyle Pitts is normally 306, but Brandon, Bob went up and got his guy here. He pairs Pitts with Chase here at the start, and it's one of those things where, maybe he makes it to the middle of the third round, but certainly a statement here from Mr. Lung on how much he values Pitts this season.
Yeah, Pitts has obviously been the talk of a lot of the fantasy industry over the last few months with the signing of Kirk Cousins to the Atlanta Falcons. We're expecting that finally, good quarterback play is going to bring Kyle Pitts to the forefront at the position in fantasy. Bob Long, we trust him as far as that consistency goes. He's the consistency guy in the fantasy realm. But this is kind of you're reaching for a guy that you're expecting to be a big boom play this year. A lot of people have Kyle Pitts ranked at that tight end 5, tight end 6 spot. So considering how the draft plays out, he's getting a guy that's going to be ranked around that position. As he's watching the tight end run go off earlier in this round, he kind of felt like, I need to go get my guy here instead of wait for the route.
And he's running a lot of he's in Falcons camp. He's running many routes from the slot position, which intrigues me. And that'll be interesting to see what it looks like once the preseason starts and we see exactly what kind of team they're putting on the field and where they're lining up.
Guys, how surprised were you to see Ferrell? I'll throw this to you. Dalton Kincaid. I mean, we saw that big glut of tight ends go there. Dalton Kincaid wasn't one of them. In fact, after the first 5 went off the board, you saw another almost a full half round afterwards where Kincaid finally went at the 302. I got to believe Daniel Wright and Gino Donnie were probably pretty thrilled that Kincaid was there to him. They could have taken him at the 211. They get him at the 302. Ferrell, good value there for Kincaid.
Why not? I like him a little bit before Pitts. I guess I like him in the position before Pitts. So in this draft, as far as my values, I would flip Pitts and Kincaid. But yeah, that's as far down as I've seen Kincaid go in a while.
One of the things we always talk about on this show is a lot of the pros are, they're in the fishbowl, so to speak, where, they're producing content and everybody hears it, everybody sees it, everybody reads it. And Henry Muto pointing out here with Josh Hayes at the 212, he said he knew Kyren Williams was going to be the pick there for him because he listens to him every day on RotoBaller Radio on Sirius XM every morning, and he knew Kyren Williams was going to be the pick. Kyren Williams and Christian McCaffrey here. Brandon, that's a pretty strong start. I mean, this is best ball slim, obviously. So these running backs, there's kind of a premium on them up there. But, man, if Kyren Williams stays healthy, what a 1-2 punch that is for Hayes from the 1 spot.
Oh, absolutely. And you're starting 2 running backs in this format, but you're also only starting the 2 wide receivers with the 2 flex. So, obviously, Josh, the magic man here, Josh Hayes, is going to have that 1-2 punch, like you mentioned, that are throw in the lineup each and every week, barring injury. That's obviously going to be something to kind of think about with a Christian McCaffrey and a Kyren Williams. But assuming those 2 guys stay healthy, I'm expecting to see Josh now kind of attack the wide receiver position and eventually here in the next couple of rounds probably go ahead and grab his tight end for this format too. But that's definitely an amazing start, getting 2 guys that could be top 5 at the position, right there at the 1 spot and then coming back around at 212.
Does Kyren Williams catch any passes, guys?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not like at a Gibbsian level, but he catches passes for sure.
Okay. You see, I kind of like with Stafford, I think one of the things holding him back from even being a fantasy draftable quarterback is I see so few passes to the running backs. Kyren Williams, I think, is you have to expect him to rush for 1,700 yards to deliver what he did last year in fantasy numbers, and that's a tall order. And he can be a very effective back without getting there. I don't think we're going to see that kind of yardage out of him this year.
1,144 rushing yards last year in 2023 in 12 games. He also, in those 12 games, caught 32 passes as well. So
that's where the other yardage came from.
Yeah, exactly. He had 200, just over 200 yards there, 15 total touchdowns. It was a banner year for Kyren Williams. Could we see some regression in the mean? I don't know. I think that's certainly a lot of people are betting on it this year.
I have been misinformed, and if 1,100 is what we got from him rushing, I think he can hit that again.
He's just got to stay healthy. And I know Eric R in the YouTube chat right now saying Kyren is a little brittle for me to take in round 2.
Eric R said hello to me. Hello back, Eric R.
Okay, there you go. One of the things that we always pay attention to in these pros versus Joes drafts is because some of the pros maybe aren't super familiar with the FFPC and they see how tight ends get the premium scoring. Sometimes they raise up, sometimes they fall down in drafts. We're seeing them raised up tonight. Tight end 7, normally not off the board until the early 4th round. Well, here in the mid 4th round, here in the early 3rd, we see tight end 7 off the board with Evan Engram. How do I know this? Because I go to fantasymojo.com, at FantasyMojo on the X, Darren Armani, the godfather of the Pros versus Joes challenge. Each and every year he puts this together. And anytime we cite ADP on this show or the HSFF Hour, it's always due to his website, fantasymojo.com. And who better than to be our first guest tonight than the man, the myth, the legend, the Darren Armani. Welcome to the program, my friend.
Look at him.
Yes. Look at you guys.
Yes.
There
He is.
Ferrell, I got to tell you, today I drove 300 miles from Pennsylvania so that I could enter into a contest for the KFFC. Finally, I was able to legally enter.
Well, you got to get that S in there. It's 5 letters, and but either way, you would have had driven that 300 miles. But
this is
Darren,
true.
you're good company. So when you're out cruising by yourself, I mean that's a good thing. And it is, and maybe you had some moments of illumination to.
I did.
Thank you for joining the KFFSC. We are thrilled to have you making your appearance here in Louisville this year.
Yeah. So
people are going to come up to you and say, "Where should I draft this guy, Darren?" You're never going to have a moment's peace the whole time.
Yeah, well, it's a little different. It's a little different, but I'll be ready for that.
It's going to be a lot of fun. And I know, Darren, you have an exciting announcement coming up. But for anybody, I want to ask you 2 questions before we get to it. Number one, for anybody who is not familiar with FantasyMojo.com, why do they need a subscription? Why do they need to check this out? What are you doing over there that has everybody so thrilled with everything, all the tools that are available?
Most of the people are going there for the ADP. It is the most accurate, up to date. We have I have 18 formats of FFPC contests updated daily. So it's kind of the Bible of FFPC ADP. And then of course the other thing is the draft boards. Any draft that's conducted online for the FFPC is immediately available the next day, and we keep them updated as well. Not to mention the historical, going back to like 2009, I think I have every draft online. So it's all at your fingertips there. You want to see who the winners were last year, what their drafts look like. So if you're a hardcore FFPC person, they dive deep into the data. And if you're just fresh, we get a lot of brand new players, subscribers. It puts your finger on the pulse of what's going on right away. You're not guessing when you go into a draft room. You know exactly what to expect. And we've got all sorts of other tools, but I always tell people, go to the virtual tour on the homepage and you can see what else we have to offer. But it's kind of the complete encyclopedia of FFPC history.
I always say, if you're playing in the FFPC, it's invaluable, and definitely make sure that you're subscribing to FantasyMojo.com. Darren,
Yep.
I'm going to ask you a question I don't really know the answer to, this is why I could never be a lawyer, right? Because I'm asking a question and I don't know how my witness is going to answer it. How did Pros versus Joes and Fantasy Mojo come together to team up on such a great competition every year?
Well, it actually started. I used to run something called the Fantasy Network Draft Challenge, which was pre FFPC, but it was the same thing where we mixed industry players against your everyday fantasy players. But then once FFPC launched, I think the second year that FFPC was in existence, it kind of got started on the message boards. And to be honest with you, there's always been this rivalry because the high stakes players, they have a bit of an ego, and they see the people whose opinions are, I guess, most public out there are considered the experts. And then the FFPC players are like, we're the guys playing. We're the best ones. So basically, since I was an FFPC player, I kind of got my feet in both worlds. So I was like, all right, let's put you guys against you guys. And we're going to mix it up. And every year we're going to see who's better, the people who espouse the knowledge or the hardcore drafters who are in their everyday grinding, because they do have a chip on their shoulder, a lot of the Joes. And to be honest with you, a lot of the Joes have taken the step over into the pros world. We've seen that over time. So the scales they're sort of balancing out. But it's been in existence. This is the 16th year, and it's as heated as ever.
And how many years in a row have the Joes won this contest?
I think it's the last six or seven.
Six. It's been
a while.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just want to throw that out there as a reminder.
Yeah, I mean, they do overall.
You talk about asking questions you already know the answer to.
That was a leading question. So and Brandon too. I think that's because this is your first year with Pros versus Joes. Did you feel any like the intimidation factor going into this? I suppose there's got to be some of it, but at the same time, I mean, you're cranking out rankings, you're cranking out drafts. You know what you're doing.
Yeah, no, it's more of a thing. I mean, Mojo there, he knows I've been knocking down his door for the last, feels like 3 or 4 years trying to get into this thing. Finally got in this year, but it's not a nerves thing. I've been involved in and won the Flex Leagues championship a couple of times over the last 5 years. That's run by Jake Seeley. So I know how to do drafts involving, other experts within the industry, but I've been doing high stakes drafting for, it feels like 10 to 12 years myself. So, I've been doing fantasy football all the way since back in '97 is when I started. So I have a lot of years under my belt and a lot of experience. So it's not anything where I feel like you put me in a room, whether they're Joes, so to speak, or whether they're pros that are also in the industry. I never feel a bit of nervousness. I always feel like I'm very prepared and I'm ready to get after it. And now you just mentioned the Joes have won this 6 years in a row. It's time to buck the trend now, baby. We got to knock these guys off. That's what we're here to do.
And we shall. I mean, we've been talking about how there's been a lot of impressive drafts from the pros this year. And we'll see what happens at the end of the year. Darren, I've been teasing this long enough. You said you had a special announcement that you wanted to come on here and talk about. The floor is yours, my friend.
Yes. So draft after draft, we keep hearing, well, if you win the overall title, you don't get anything, right? So we're going to change that now. So this year, we're going to put Balky. I'm going to put a link into the chat. I don't know if you can hit this URL and display it. So what we're going to do for the overall champion this year, we're going to award them a championship, a championship belt. This will be the first time we've awarded a Pros versus Joes championship. It's one of those Trophy Smack belts.
Right.
And I've been playing in a King's Classic for many, many years. And having gotten one of these from that competition, it's really cool. It's an awesome keepsake. And it displays great. I mean, you could wear it if you want. But yeah, there it is. There's the belt. So it's Pros versus Joes overall champion. So across the 7 leagues, if you have the highest amount of points as the overall winner, now you're going to get this belt. You got the FFPC logo, you got my logo, and then we'll have each year we'll have the little branding logo for the tournament. So something for people to really aim for now, as opposed to just being totally a confined format. Now it's got a little bit more of a tournament, feel to maybe how you're drafting.
Tom Szymanski right now. I would wear that to work. That is fantastic. That is great. What if Tom? I don't know what you do for a living, but what if you're a doctor and your doctor comes in wearing that
with a matching lapel pin? I mean, it would be just fantastic to wear to work.
Oh yeah, for sure, absolutely.
I'm gonna have some hard time getting some shoes to match that though. But
right. Well, that's exciting, Darren. That's fantastic, and this will be the first year that we're doing it. So no longer is there any sort of unattached glory with no tangible prize. You have fixed that this year, which is very exciting. So for the first time ever, Pros versus Joes overall champ getting a championship belt, which is great. Now, is that going to be displayed at fantasymojo.com if people want to check it out later?
Yeah, I'll put it on Twitter. I'll put it on. We got the Pros versus Joes portal page, as I call it, where you have all the draft boards and all the information. I'll put it right up there, and we'll see at the end of the year, who pulls it down. It's not just going to be for bragging rights anymore to be the overall champ. You're going to get something that now if it's one of these shared teams, they're going to have to fight over who gets to hold it for the year. But we'll put both of their names on there.
Right, exactly, and yeah, they can just 6 months at one spot. It's just like the Stanley Cup, right? Everybody
they'll figure it out.
Yes, exactly. Darren, so much good stuff from you once again tonight. Congratulations on another banner you're putting together, PVJ. You are drafting, is it Tuesday?
No, I'm actually drafting in a slow draft this year because I'm traveling.
Slow. Okay, all right, gotcha.
So,
right.
And it is a slow draft, I'll tell you. But
when did that one
different vibe?
When did that one start, Darren?
That started last Monday. I think we just got into the 11th round. I'll probably post that now that we got halfway through. But we got some great drafters in there. You got Leone, who's a monster in his format. You got Maddock, who knows what he's doing. Who else? We got
and both those guys I should mention too. They play FFPC normally, so that it makes it tougher for the Joes.
Yeah, those are the pros you got to watch out for. The guys who play the tight end premium format on a more regular basis. A lot of the pros, like they might play like a lot of leagues, but the tight end format kind of catches them off guard, or you see them. They don't have a feel for like those tight end premium when you go for the tight ends. That last draft, I'm still trying to recover from. It was like tight ends were like going extinct. It was crazy.
Yeah,
so
you're welcome.
They'll maybe just jump the gun.
You're welcome.
Merch was all over the tight ends. It made it happen. So Darren, fantasymojo.com at fantasymojo on the X. Awesome announcement about the belt. Good luck in the slow draft. Good luck in drafting season this year. Keep up all your great work, and I will see you in Las Vegas in a few weeks, my friend.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you later.
That is Darren Armani at Fantasy Mojo on the X. Good to hear from him for sure as we power through round number 4. No, I take that back. We're almost done with round number 5 here, guys. We mentioned the tight ends. We're going. Evan Engram ends up going to Sean Green and Michael Young as the 7th tight end off the board. George Kittle also moves up into the 3rd round tonight. He normally is a pick that goes at the 4-11. He goes at the 3-11. Brandon, wasn't that your draft too, that Kittle went a full round ahead of ADP?
Yeah, I believe in our draft the other night, Kittle was he came off the board towards the end of round 3.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, in our draft the other night. So like he mentioned just now, is tight ends were flying off the board very fast and furious the other night in that draft.
The Goddard in that draft went a whole board ahead. So
that's what it felt like.
Yeah. it may have course corrected at this point, guys, because tight end 8 was Kittle at the 3-11. And then tight end 9 was Njoku tonight at the 5-01 from Josh Hayes. Jake Ferguson goes to Green and Young at the 5-04 as they get 2 tight ends in their first 5 picks. And Ferguson's ADP is 504. So maybe we're going to normalize a little bit here as there is a huge focus on receiver in the 4th round. Let's go out and grab our next 2 guests here. You know them as the owners of the Pretty in Pink franchise. And you know that because we just had them on the High Stakes Fantasy Football, or did Ferrell and I. I'm going to see if I can jam them on the screen here because we got a lot of bodies now. But we'll bring in Gino Donnie and, of course, Daniel Wright from Pretty in Pink. Guys, how's it going from the 2 spot tonight?
Great. Happy to be here.
Good. I think that, I mean, the pick that we were talking about, and Gino, I'll throw this to you right away. Kincaid at the 302. Were you guys considering him at the 211 there?
We were, but to be honest, it wasn't a top piece of our strategy to acquire a tight end early. We were happy to sort of see him go, but the value there at the 3-2 is just way too great to let him slide. So we were willing to roll the dice and see if he could come back to us, and he did, and we just had to execute.
On a okay, so then in the 2nd round, I'm looking at it right now, and it was Jalen Waddle that you guys ended up taking 211. Daniel, any of the players in the first 5 rounds, any of these players, guys that you talked about targets before the draft started that you wanted to make sure you got?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we actually had our first 5 rounds penciled in: CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Waddle, Travis Etienne, Josh Jacobs, Patrick Mahomes. We were not expecting Kincaid to be there. No. We actually never even really discussed it until about 3 or 4 picks before it was our turn. I know that, we were super high on him, but drafting a tight end early wasn't really part of our plan, but we really weren't expecting that guy to slide. So we stuck with the plan and took Waddle, and we said, if he comes back around the corner, we're going to take him. So yeah, so far we pretty much got the team we wanted, but we just have a much better tight end than we thought we would have.
Yeah, and Gino, I think that's the interesting thing. Not only did Kincaid slide, but he was tight end 6 tonight. Like, if you were thinking the tight end was going to slide, you think it's like Andrews or Pitts. Obviously, Bob Lung went up and grabbed, but to get tight end 6 at the 302, and I guess, like, you guys are pros. You play in the main event. You know how important it is, Gino, to be able to make these pivots and still make your team flexible to grab more value if it comes down the pike.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't be too rigid. It's good to have a strategy, but the strategy always has to be flexible. I will say for sure we had Dalton Kincaid not at tight end 6. He's clearly well ahead of Kyle Pitts, at least on our list, and we slotted him in right there just ahead of Mark Andrews. So, yeah, great value. And these it's been crazy in the tight end position in the first 4. We've looked at them all closely.
Mm-hmm. Daniel, the Jalen Waddle pick at 211, according to the FFPC Best Ball ADP, it's about a half round higher than he normally goes. What is it? And this is one of the players that you said you were going to get, or at least that you really wanted to get. And if you're taking him at 211, you probably were feeling pretty good about getting him. What is it about Waddle this year that has you more intrigued than the ADP spot that he's going at?
Well, I mean, his efficiency's just gone way up the last 2 years with McDaniel there, and he was a little banged up last year, so we haven't really seen that like big season out of him yet. But at Tyreek Hill's age, I just think eventually at some point the distribution of the production on that team has to just start to tilt a little bit in Waddle's direction, and that just offense is way too explosive, and he's way too good of a player. I think to be going in the middle of the 3rd round. So that group of receivers that go behind him in the 3rd round there, we just weren't really crazy about any of them. Mm-hmm. I think most people are kind of all over the board on that group of receivers. I mean, Nico Collins went a full round, I think, later. He was probably next on our list after Waddle. So, yeah, there's a lot of good players there. But, yeah, we really want to have a piece of that Waddle. And we're feeling like he's going to start to get a little bigger piece of the pie.
Yeah, Sean Green, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we if you look at the Ike Bruce to Torrey Holt transition and the Marvin Harrison Sr. to Reggie Wayne transition, we just feel like this is the torch pass year, and Waddle just takes the mantle there.
The Joes in Sean Green and Michael Young just made their selection of Calvin Ridley at the 609. That means the 610 pick is up. The Stack Hunters, Dan Williamson and Bradley Stalder, are currently making their pick, which means you guys will be on deck after this. Patrick Mahomes, you already have the elite quarterback. Dalton Kincaid, you already have the elite tight end. You do have a top 12 running back. Josh Jacobs is who you took at the 411 tonight, so you have a top 12 running back, and pair him with those, or to go along with that wide receiver pair, I should say, at the top of the draft in Lamb and Waddle. There's a lot of different directions you could go here, and obviously Williamson and Stalder will still have the opportunity to take somebody maybe you're looking at here. They take Hopkins. I'm going to let you guys talk out this pick between yourselves on air.
Yeah, Gino, I mean, this is I
think this is the guy. I mean, we sort of have a guy here, young, upsidey, our type of player. Yeah, smash the button.
Looking at number 80, right?
Yep.
I mean, I think 86 is next, but yeah, this is my guy. I mean, you guys heard me talk about him on the show last week. I just think that the opportunity there for Ladd McConkey is too big, and he's too talented.
And he joins your team as the 3rd wide receiver on it. The 38th receiver off the board tonight goes to Pretty in Pink. Wright and Donnie take Ladd McConkey here. It finishes off a little bit of a mini run here with receivers in the 6th round as Deontay Johnson goes off the board to Josh Hayes. He also takes Cortland Sutton, and you guys are back on the clock at the 7:02.
Oh, yeah, Gino. I think we should probably take another receiver here. I like 86. I like 89. I like 87. 73. I like them all, man. Honestly. I like all those guys.
I like 86, the best of the group.
All right. Jackson Smith and Jigba.
We have our own little side ADP.
Right, exactly, yeah.
There we go.
And if only you could trade down in pros versus Joes, these guys could have still got another player they liked in the mid-7th round. But as it stands, it's Jackson, Smith, and Jigba. You know what I think is interesting about this, Gino, here is you go with McConkey and Smith and Jigba, a freshman and a sophomore who both have a lot of upside here. And because you only can, the only thing you get is if you finish at first place, and then obviously we found out the overall championship, they're kind of good picks to win right here.
Right. Yeah. Second is the first loser, right? I want that belt. This is all upside, and we skew young. Kincaid is still a young player as well. Here's what we don't like to do. And there's a lot of pros in here, so we're not saying anything novel, but we don't like to pay for talent that's already been demonstrated if we don't have to. Right. So, I think JSN and you've done so many of these podcasts. I'll just throw this in there. Every time I talk to one of my buddies or some house league guy or whatever, everyone minimizes what he did last year. Everyone thinks it was a 30 catch year. It was a 60+ catch year. He almost commanded 100 targets. So on JSN specifically, I think the perception of what he did last year is for some reason much darker than what he really showed. And we just think with the change at offensive coordinator and just what he did last year, it's just a great place to jump up from.
Yeah, I think he was improperly used and kind of limited by the way they called play last year. And much like Waddle, I think he just starts to get a bigger piece of the pie, and that talent just starts to really, really shine through. So.
And he was talking about that last week too, how excited he is for the new OC and how excited he is about the offense. And he's already living it, right? He's practicing it, so he knows. And I think, part of the reason I think that people think that it was like a 30-catch season, myself included sometimes, because was the expectations, with Smith and Jigba, number one coming into the draft, and then number two being the first receiver picked. There are certain expectations that go with that for fantasy owners, and it just didn't click last year. Maybe it'll click this year. Final question, Daniel, I'll throw this to you. When you are drafting in between two Joes, you got Josh Hayes from RotoBaller, and then you got the Stack Hunters on the other side of you here. Did you feel like you were going to be able to scoop up running back value in the mid rounds and later rounds? Because as of 7 rounds now, you have one running back on your squad.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is kind of the way that we like to build teams. I mean, to be honest, we weren't really planning on this. Like I said, we had penciled in ETN and Jacobs there in 3 and 4. So, we had to alter course, and that's something we talk about a lot is being, flexible and taking what the board is giving to us. And we are confident in our ability to, build out the rest of that running back core. And you heard Gino talk about this last week. I mean, anybody that looks at any of our teams, I mean, RB2 is rarely a strong suit anyways. So we're comfortable drafting this way. And this is the type of roster construction that we usually look for.
Well, guys, it's been a great 7 rounds here so far. I have full confidence that you could be the Joes that keep the Joes atop the pros versus Joes this year, although Brandon would probably disagree with me there. He's hoping to take it down. Anyway, so moving on here, guys. Good luck the remainder of this draft. Good luck in the FFPC main event and the rest of the drafting season. Thanks so much for hopping aboard. Jim. Go team Pretty in Pink.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Right.
Thanks. There it is from Daniel right there. It's good stuff. Pretty in Pink franchise, Daniel Wright and Gino Donnie joining us on the program tonight. So one of the things, Ferrell, I'll throw this to you. One of the things that's kind of stood out to me, we saw the tight ends go early. We see Sean Green and Michael Young take their second tight end at tight end 10. And since then, only 2 tight ends off the board. We're almost through the 7th round, and we've only had 2 more tight ends taken since one team doubled up. This seems to be a room, Ferrell, that's not going to be bullied into thinking that they have to take tight ends here, apparently.
There's that bully word. Well, you know what? We've entered another tier of tight ends with Freiermuth and Bowers, and so it might be quiet for a while. Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about quarterbacks. How about Richardson? I'd like to know, Balky, I'd like to know both your guys' opinions on this quarterback. I just drafted him in a main event league. Naturally, there's a huge risk reward for this player. how high in fantasy point scoring could you see Richardson going? Can he break past these wonderful quarterbacks, Allen, Jackson, all with a great, great story? Mahomes, Hurts. Is this where he's going to be Is this where he's going to be when we get to Planet Hollywood? What's the future for this player in drafts, and what's going to happen this season?
What I love about Richardson in a format like this, where first place wins and nobody else wins anything, this is a guy who it is in the realm of possibility where he finishes as quarterback 1 this year, that he finishes ahead of Hurts and Mahomes and Allen, all these guys. Now, a lot of things have to go right in order for him to do that. But I thought what we saw in his limited sample size last year, that this guy, if he's healthy for an entire season, could put up Boffo numbers. And maybe he doesn't, and maybe he gets hurt, and that's what knocks him down a little bit here. But yeah, I think upside is huge for Richardson, who goes tonight to the Stack Hunters at the 703. Brandon, your thoughts on him?
I couldn't agree any more than what you just said. Richardson, to me, he's a fantasy game breaker. You know, we saw it, the small sample size last year. He led the league in fantasy points per drop back, which is kind of a key stat you want to look at the position, especially in this type of a format. You're getting 4 points per passing touchdown. Going to put a little bit more of an emphasis to the running quarterbacks, and those guys kind of come up the board a little bit more. Anthony Richardson's a guy, and, you know, Ferrell mentioned it, and you know, if he stays healthy, if he's on the field for 17 games, this is a guy that's going to be pushing for that QB1, QB2 type finish. And, you know, let's not leave out the fact Shane Steichen is a guy that orchestrated a QB1 finish for a Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia before coming over to Indianapolis. And he's installing those same type of mentalities for a guy like Anthony Richardson. So I see the sky's the limit for a guy like Richardson this year.
And, you know, Balky, with your quarterback there in Green Bay, Jordan Love, just signing the huge contract. If you look at what he had last year, the light kind of came on in the middle of the season. Mm-hmm. That's where he really began to stack up stats and look comfortable and look like the quarterback that we expect to see. And we were right about him last year in drafting period. It just took a little time to get cooking. Richardson was cooking from day one last year. And you think if he were to build on that, and if he would have a better second half than first half, I think that's what we're looking at for this player. We get to see it. He's so strong in the pocket. He's not necessarily a rhythm quarterback. We had drafters talking about Josh Downs the other night, and I didn't bring it up, but it gives me pause because I don't see the slot receiver in timing and quick routes really doing a lot in this offense. I see downfield guys and guys that can make the contested catch. I think Pittman, who's slipping into the 4th round, has a year, perhaps his best year, with Richardson on the field for the whole season.
The other thing I should mention here too is we're going to get to our next guest in just a minute. Anthony Richardson, interesting quarterback chicken that was being played with the Stack Hunters here at the 6'10". They didn't have a quarterback yet. They see that Pretty in Pink had Mahomes. They see Josh Hayes had Jalen Hurts. They grabbed DeAndre Hopkins, their 4th receiver, and then sure enough, Anthony Richardson comes back to him at the 703. So smart drafting there by the Stack Hunters. If it did play out that way, I could just be making this up too.
Yeah.
Never considered it. But and by the way, the value on Richardson tonight, really, really good, Ferrell. And Brandon, 5'10" normally, he falls to the 703 tonight.
Crazy.
It is. I mean, and it's not like, you know, these other guys were overdraft. I mean, Josh Allen slipped maybe a little bit less than a half round. Jalen Hurts was actually almost a full round. Patrick Mahomes was about a half round or so. Lamar Jackson was kind of where he normally goes. But normally we see that 5th quarterback be pumped up into the, you know, the mid 5th round. And tonight he falls into the early 7th. It's crazy stuff. The green room is getting crowded, so I'm going to usher one of them out to the stage here. You follow him on the X at Bob_Lung. He is responsible for one of the best fantasy football publications out there, and he is the pride of Canton, Ohio, the founder of the Fantasy Football Expo, Mr. Bob Lung. Bob, welcome aboard tonight. So glad to have you. How are things from the 5-hole tonight?
Interesting. You know, this is always so much fun. It's such a unique draft in how it plays out. You know, there's some experts that I'm very familiar with in Josh Hayes, Jeff Mans, JJ Zachariason. So a lot of these guys I've competed against in the past, but you know, the Joes are they're no ordinary Joes. So you got to be on your toes. I'm probably picking people that I usually don't, but they fall in that spot, and I go, "Yeah, I'm going to do this." So yeah, it was an interesting start for me. I thought I'd get a couple tight ends at the beginning, but that didn't work out at all.
Right.
But yeah, I like my team as it sits. Kind of had to go with some running backs there to kind of solidify that position. I was really happy to get Chubb. I'm reading so many good things about him locally because I live in the area. He's running, he's cutting, he's, you know, even though they put him on PUP, you know, for now, I really think he's going to be back a lot sooner than people give him credit for. If he can play even 10 games, 12 games, it's a bonus at this spot. So yeah, pretty happy so far.
So so let's go through this. And Joe House is commenting in the YouTube chat right now, Bob. He says, anybody worried about that Jamar Chase holdout situation? Bengals are cheapskates. I doubt they'll pay up. You clearly have no worries about it taking him at the 105 tonight.
I mean, they know that he's the man. They got Higgins to basically take the spot there, the tag. So they'll do what they need to do. They understand that. So I'm not too worried about it. Everybody's playing this game. You know, it's the same thing as happening with Justin Jefferson and, CeeDee Lamb and, those kind of, or not Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb and, some of these folks, even Tyreek is talking about, hey, I need a bump now. So they're all going to keep playing this chicken game. And, and as long as they keep paying these people, these guys, it's going to keep going. So I'm not too worried about it. They'll be on the field.
So the pick that had everybody buzzing, not everybody, but a lot of people buzzing, Bob, on YouTube was the Kyle Pitts pick at the 208 tonight. You have the opportunity to take the fifth tight end off the board. You went with Pitts over Kincaid here. Tell us a little bit about why Pitts was the pick, not only a tight end for you there, but any position. You decided to go with Pitts at the 208.
Yeah, that when I saw that big run there, I was kind of worried that if I didn't take somebody there, that who knows, they could have taken Pitts, Everett, Kincaid, and I would have got stuck with maybe George Kittle, which isn't terrible, but also not great. So decided to do that. And I think it was a good call. I probably would have taken Derrick Henry if I wouldn't have. So that was disappointing to see him go down. I was hoping that Ingram would make it back. And I guess I'm on the clock here, ain't I?
Yes, you are. Yes, Bob. And Bob, while you decide, let me just tell everybody what your roster looks like so far.
Okay.
So Bob is on the clock right now. He's already got Lamar Jackson. He's got Kyle Pitts as his quarterback and his tight end. He stacked up some good running backs here in Jones, Montgomery, and Chubb. Those were his last three picks. Jones, Montgomery, and Chubb in the backfield. Chase, Kupp, and Diggs are the receiver. And Bob, you've added another field flipper here in Rashid Shaheed at the 905.
Yeah, this is a total points cumulative. So anytime you can get a high upside guy, I mean, even though I preach consistency, this is not the league for it. This is the league for all hands on deck, all points on deck. So I was looking at it. I needed kind of that fourth receiver, kind of eyeing a Jordan Addison, Rashid Shaheed kind of people. And I'm like, either one of them could be good, but I certainly like the quarterback situation a little bit better in New Orleans. So I went with Rashid Shaheed there to kind of give me a little bit extra upside on a potential weekly basis. And he wasn't, he really wasn't that bad from a consistency standpoint last year. And I think this year, another year under the belt, I think that he'll continue to grow in that offense.
Target share and volume is probably going to be – he's probably going to have career highs in both of them this year, I would think, in New Orleans. So he's a player I've never really liked before, Bob, but he's a player that I actually have been drafting this year because I think this year is the year to grab him, and then we'll see how far up he goes in drafts next year. Two things that I want to talk with you about in regards to your contributions to the industry. The Fantasy Football Expo, not this coming weekend, but the weekend after in Canton, Ohio. Tickets still available, Bob, and I know – this event gets bigger and better every year, doesn't it?
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, we just have so much fun. It's such a great weekend, just a lot of camaraderie, brings the community together. One of the most exciting parts about this year is how many new folks are coming to town. I really hope everybody can make it because these folks are coming to show off their new product, their new, whatever site, stat, app, idea. And it's really cool because, it just makes me happy that we have this community that can work together, even though we're kind of all going for the same thing and sharing our knowledge and wanting somebody to, subscribe and, follow and all that kind of stuff. But we're all there to help each other. And that's what's great about this Expo weekend is people come in town, we hang out, we have some parties, we do some, education and panel discussions and trade show booths and stuff on sports betting on Saturday, all fantasy football on Sunday. And yeah, it just continues to get bigger and better. Folks like JJ, Jeff Mans, and those folks have all been out to this. JJ's coming back again this year. We do our Kings Classic, which is the best of the best drafting live from the Pro Football Hall of Fame on Saturday on SiriusXM Radio. And we just have a great time. So anybody who's never been to this, you're out there listening, thefantasyfootballexpo.com, get your tickets. Come out and join us. Have some fun with us. Yeah, and FFPC is also very kind to donate a $2,000 entry fee into the $1 million contest that we give away to everybody who attends the event. So that in itself may be worth it. You could come to the event, then become a millionaire. It's that easy.
Where else can you say that, right?
Exactly.
Not too many conventions out there can do that. The other way that you can become a millionaire is checking out the Fantasy Football Consistency Guide, which is available for purchase on Amazon right now. Something that's been nominated for awards. Well, I mean, I don't know, the last
7 years in a row.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I mean, it's right up there, Bob. And we kind of talked about this on one of the other shows I do. But you kind of talked about like it's a labor of love, but it's something that I think you've honed in on. How you develop this and how you put it together every single year.
Yeah, it's it's something that I think we all get into fantasy. We find a niche because it's something that help us from doing something wrong in our league or something didn't go right. And when I figured it out, it was a year that my team was 500 and I was second in scoring. And what I basically realized is I had a lot of inconsistent players. And from that point on, I'm an accountant by day, so I'm a number guy anyway. And I just started kind of looking at things, and as they say, the rest is history. And now, we're at a level where we've got a book and just honored to be recognized each year by FSWA, and people buy it and they like it. And they always, I love getting the emails and the comments of, hey, thanks for helping me. I used to always miss the playoffs, or I just never seemed to get it right. I always thought it was bad luck, and got your book and, made the playoffs, won the league, whatever the case may be. And that's worth every penny, it certainly it means a lot more to me than any pennies that I make off the book. So
right. Yeah, exactly. And that's what it's all about. It's, it's one of those things where it's like we consume all this content. We, as fantasy players, and we're always trying to get better. And so it's like one of these relievers in Major League Baseball. They make one, they can't find the strike zone. They're walking everybody. They make one little tweak, and which might not be a huge thing. It might just be as simple as getting the Fantasy Football Consistency Guide, and all of a sudden, boom, they're a consistent playoff contender and they're winning leagues, annually, or at least, semi-annually all the time. So that's always great to see. Amazon.com, just search for Fantasy Football Consistency Guide, right, Bob? That's the best way.
That's it. Yeah, it's that simple. You'll find it and if you're an Amazon Prime member, you get it in 2 days. You can get it for next weekend's drafts or whenever they're coming up. So yeah, grab that soon, and always there to help out. Thank you guys again for the Pros versus Joe. Eric, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for being here. Just wanted to stop in and say hi, and just thanks again.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. Good luck the rest of the draft, man.
All right, buddy. Take care.
See you, Bob.
That is Bob Lung. Follow him on the X at Bob_Lung. And the link, by the way, to the Fantasy Football Consistency Guide is there on Amazon as well. Quarterbacks are flying fast and furious now. We got 12 of them off the board prior to the completion of the 10th round. Nobody's doubled up on quarterbacks at all. Brandon, I'm going to throw this to you. Jaden Daniels is a player I really like. He's a player that part of the reason I've liked him so much was because it seemed like he was going lower in drafts. I think the secret's out on him. Quarterback 10 here tonight to Mauricio Gutierrez from Estadio Fantasy. And I think he's going to continue climbing here. There's just so many positive vibes coming out about that Washington offense. And Jaden Daniels is helming the whole thing. I think the days of him being a 9th round pick, we might be seeing the end of those. I think he's going to keep going up.
Yeah, he's a guy that's going to become a more of a household name as we get through training camp. You mentioned it. A lot of guys like myself, Derek Brown, we've been kind of really pushing the narrative with Jaden Daniels, even going back through the NFL draft process. Both of us had him as our QB1 coming into the NFL draft, and now you're starting to see a lot of people kind of catching up to Jaden Daniels now at this point. He's a guy that's, kind of a lesser degree, almost like a cheaper Anthony Richardson. He's going to provide that rushing utility and give you the points from that side of things, but not to mention the fact that the guy can just absolutely sling the ball around the field, and that's something that's just not talked about very much with Jaden Daniels. And over here, we see Mauricio grabbing him, like you mentioned, in the 9th round, but a more important factor with that too is that he does pair him with Terry McLaurin to build that stack there as well. So that's kind of smart drafting, grabbing him, waiting, and as long as he possibly could to grab Jaden Daniels as his QB1 there.
Ferrell, the other thing I'm noticing here is we're seeing some quarterbacks being doubled up on now. The FFPC duo of Cannon and Rucker from the 8 spot tonight end up going with Allen in the 4th. Now they get Jordan Love in the 10th. Bob Lung just took Tua Tagovailoa in the 10th after taking Lamar Jackson in the 5th. But when you're drafting best ball teams, Ferrell, is there like a sweet spot for you where, you like to have 2 quarterbacks at X point in the draft, or is that not a rubric that you follow? It's just kind of a free-flowing thing.
I want to have 3 quarterbacks, and I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait and get 3 guys. And tonight's draft, that would have been fantastic for me. Look, I could have had a Stroud and Daniels or Stroud and Love, or it just be I could have a lot of fun with this. So it's a situation where, I don't like in best ball to give that big draft capital away to that frontline quarterback, because I think 3 is better than anyone's 2. Although, man, this is overkill with Allen and Love, and I see some guys going in front of Love that I just necessarily would not pick in front of him. And maybe I'm trapped into just remembering what the end of the season was. But, Brandon, we come on here, Balky and I, and the message board is full every conversation, and even at the tight end position, about who the guy is going to be with the Packers. And everybody's got their favorite. But what that suggests to me is that team has just fantastic depth at the wide receiver position. And I think this quarterback's going to benefit from that, because there's always going to be someone for him to throw the ball to. And I don't know if I can necessarily say that, if Goff were to lose Samuel or Ayuk, what's going to happen with his season. And same thing about Tua if he loses one of his big guys.
Yeah.
Jordan Love seems to make all these guys work, and will develop one of them as even a bigger star.
The Tagovailoa thing is interesting, and I hadn't considered it until you brought this up, Ferrell. But, what do the Dolphins have at wideout? They have Hill, who is, I don't want to say old, but he's never been this old before. And I think people would tell you that when you get to the age, what is he, 31 now? When you get to this age, you start to, worry about soft tissue injuries lingering, or maybe being more susceptible to them. And if that happens, who steps in? I mean, Jonnu Smith, Odell Beckham, I don't know. And the fact that I don't know, but I do know they have 3 really talented running backs, you got to wonder what happens to Tagovailoa if one of those guys were to get hurt, either Waddle or Beckham. And that's something that I think maybe is knocking him out of the top 12 spots for quarterbacks right now. But Brandon, you look at Tagovailoa, is it a house of cards there? If there is an injury to one of those difference-making wide receivers, or do you just got to kind of throw caution in the wind and say, look, I'm trying to take first place in this Pros versus Joes. If he gets hurt, he gets hurt. I still got Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, it's a guy he's kind of your perfect complement QB2, especially in a format like this, a best ball type format. But the thing is with Tagovailoa, and we saw it last year, as the season kind of waned down to the latter stages of the year, he really struggled. Once they flipped the calendar over into November, December, got a lot more of those colder weather games. You're playing a lot more playoff eligible defenses. His efficiency metrics really kind of came back a little bit. And then also he struggled once you mentioned like Tyreek Hill, who got banged up towards the end of the year last year. We saw Tagovailoa and the offense really start to sputter. Now, if you look at it from a specific schedule standpoint, that last 6 games, if I'm not mistaken, for the Dolphins this year in 2024 is going to be an absolute gauntlet. And if you're in a situation, especially a redraft, I know we're doing best ball here, but But in redraft, he's a guy that you just can't count on as your QB1. Even if you want to wait at the position, he's definitely a guy. He's more valuable in a best ball format like this right here. You can put him in that QB2 spot, play the best weeks. But from a standpoint with his receivers, you mentioned Odell Beckham's there, Tyreek Hill, where to go down, I think. And a guy that's not really talked about too much that they do have in that depth chart, that's kind of a Tyreek Hill in waiting that can be trained up, is Malik Washington. And he's a guy that's very, very slim, quick, very route precise as well, too. And he's a guy that, if you're looking at a guy on the waiver wire and we get into the season, if they were to get some injuries to come into play there, Washington's a guy to remember.
Yeah, he's going to need Tua's going to need Hill to get those 35, 40 touchdowns. And I guess Tua will just never be the apple of fantasy drafters' eye. Did he lead the league in passing yards last year? I mean, he was knocking on the door if he wasn't. 4,700 yards, 4,600 yards. This is about as good as he can do, and it's just not ever going to make him the number one guy that we all would want.
Tyreek Hill did just turn 30, so he will not turn 31 until next spring. Tunga Vailoa did lead the league in passing last year, Ferrell, 4,624 yards. That was about 50 more than Jared Goff, who came in second place. A guy who never comes in second place is our next guest. He is the host of SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, RotoBaller Radio, from 6 a.m. till 7 a.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. You follow him on the X at Josh Hayes. Please welcome onto the show, Josh Hayes. Thank you so much, Josh. And by the way, I butchered your X name, Josh Hayes FS. Josh Hayes FS on X. Easy for me to say, right?
You also said he had never come in second place, which I mean, I guess you're saying he's an eternal champion.
He's an eternal champion.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Josh, welcome aboard, man. I think you're on mute. I think we might have you on mute. Sorry. Hold on. There we go. Josh, welcome aboard.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Does this mean I'm going to win Pros versus Joes for the rest of my
life? For the second.
This is so amazing.
It's pretty cool because you will be the pro that ends the Joes streak here, Josh, of winning all these Pros versus Joes in a row, which is fantastic for you. Last year, 9th place overall in the competition. So good on you. And I think was that Henry Muto that was saying before, you won your league last year too.
I won my league last year. I've been lightly complaining to Darren Armani that my preseason odds stink every year. So maybe this year, as like a defending champ, I got bumped up. I think I had the second highest odds for the first time in forever. I mean, it's really embarrassing. Like if you look at the odds that he posted for me the last few years, it was like I'm a pro, but I look like it needs Pros versus Joes versus Scrubs or something like that. It's the second worst odds every single year until I finally won last year. So I was like, Darren, you're going to do me right this time with the odds, aren't you? And he posted second highest odds. He was like, wow. All right. Thank goodness.
A tie 9-1. You and JJ Zachariason both 9-1 to win this behind Williamson and Stalder, and then Danny Miller, the FFPC Joes. So best odds among the pros, tied for second best. There's nothing wrong with that. But I do think we have to talk about what everybody wants to talk about here tonight. Josh, halfway through, a little over halfway through your draft, how do you feel your squad is looking at the one spot?
I like this squad, and I will say that if you look back historically, the last probably 3 years of drafts, including FFPC, I have never gone running back. Mm-hmm. And I had zero plan to. What's up, Javier? Thanks, Darren.
Remember, Javier is the one who puts the odds together every single year. Darren is just the mouthpiece. He's the man.
Right. I want to know if Javier, I need like proof of life for Javier because I really think it's just Darren, you know what I mean, putting the odds together. But either way.
He used to email our show all the time. I have not heard from him in forever, but apparently Darren, it's like Hangover 3, right? Where they couldn't get a hold of Leslie Chow, nobody could find him, but then we find out that him and Alan had been communicating via letters and emails and everything. Maybe that's the relationship that Armani and Javier have right now. I don't know. Anything's possible. Anyway, go ahead with your team analysis, Josh.
Oh, sure. So you know what, and Kyron Williams, I think, as some of the listeners mentioned here, I felt like barring injury and not that Breece Hall run that it came down to finish the end of the season and, you know, the offensive line upgrades, the investment that the Jets have, I had Kyron Williams as the number 2 running back. going into the offseason. And things change with Bijan Robinson and getting a new head coach and sort of being anointed as the guy finally. So when I see him fall all the way down to, 2.12, I couldn't help myself. So I think like he's a special player and I'm happily fine for him to have Blake Corum cut into 30% of the work. I still trust Sean McVay saying he's going to be the guy. And he was a league winner for me last year. So pairing those two together, I think I'm trying to sort of build a wide receiver core that I still feel good about, because I had every intention of going wide receiver 2, 3. And I saw this tight end run happen, and I really gave a lot of consideration to Dalton Kincaid as well. But I really kind of like sort of taking 3 tight ends who I think can put the pieces together. So I'll end up probably with 3 by the end of the draft. That can put together 4 or 5 good weeks of fantasy where they're a top 5, top 6 scorer. And I think we saw that from David Njoku last year, especially with Joe Flacco. And we saw some good weeks out of Cole Kmet too. Obviously it's a little bit of a risk with Caleb Williams. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the build that I have so far. And I think a Jalen Hurts Brock Purdy combo is pretty exciting for me.
That is exciting, and I think it's a fun. You just talked about Njoku too. When you consider, when you saw all those tight ends go off the board in the second round, I think you can make the case that where you are drafting from, Josh, it's fine to not consider a tight end at that spot, but it had to be a focus kind of in the back of your mind early on. Like, look, if I want to get a top 10 tight end, I'm probably going to have to act here at the 4 or 5 turn, which is what you did.
Yeah, you could see the urgency there, and I think you guys highlighted it pretty accurately with tight end premium. I was hoping that I could go another round and see if George Kittle slid. He made it halfway through the round and didn't make it back. So after that, I knew that on the 4 or 5 turn, like if I was going to be, it was going to be that or Brock Bowers, and then Brock Bowers was another guy I was thinking actually coming back with in 6, 7. And he goes 4 picks before me as well. So I was definitely going to take them like close to each other, Njoku and Bowers, if I could. So that plan got it spoiled a little bit. But I think the world of Brock Bowers. I think he's going to be an absolute monster, and I won't be shocked if he's a top 5 tight end this year. But yeah, that's probably the one thing that I'm not exactly thrilled about is where my tight end position is. But you can't have a strong team every single where with this amount of experts that are in this many positions, and some awesome Joes that you're competing against as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Truer words have never been spoken there. You're going to make a pick here make a couple of picks here at the 12-13 turn. Josh on the clock right now. Just to recap his team heading into this 12-12, you got Jalen Hurts and Brock Purdy as the signal callers. David Njoku and Cole Kmet are the tight ends. Backfield includes McCaffrey, Kyron Williams, Devin Singletary, and then the receivers are Mike Evans, Deontay Johnson, Courtland Sutton, Keon Coleman. And now you've added, you keep the flexibility going here, Josh. Let's talk about Demario Douglas at 12-12. Let's talk about J.K. Dobbins at 13-01, 2 picks after Kamani Vidal goes off the board.
Yeah, so I think this is upside territory now that we've gotten past starters. And I always like to say, it's harder to say in best ball because there's so many sharp drafters, and you're really aren't going to get too many gifts in this type of league. But Demario Douglas put some really nice things on tape, and I think it's kind of hidden by the fact that the quarterback play was so bad in New England last year. I think he has a leg up on being the number 1. He's battling rookies essentially, and I know people love to go crazy for Baker and Polk and look at the upside, but Demario Douglas is an absolute burner, and he proved himself by the end of the season to be the best wide receiver on that roster. I think that's still the case. I think he gets some stability with Jacoby Brissett, and if they're ready with Drake May at the quarterback, great. It's a little bit risky, but at the same time I think it's probably a value for, the 12th round. And then J.K. Dobbins, like people are coin flipping as to whether or not he may actually step in and take the job over Gus Edwards. The one thing I will say is that every time J.K. Dobbins has been healthy enough to start and he's been in competition with Gus Edwards, he's always played over Gus Edwards on the depth chart. They've always elevated him that way. So if he gets into camp, and maybe it is a couple weeks before he's ready and they don't unlock him fully, but with Jim Harbaugh drafting Joe Alt, that they're committed to the run, and they really don't want to put as much pressure on Justin Herbert trading away or letting both wide receivers walk out the door as starters last year. So I think there's some good sneaky value with J.K. Dobbins here in round 13.
Always good to chop it up with you, Josh. I look forward to doing that again very soon. Until then, we will continue to listen to you on SiriusXM from 6 until 7 Eastern Time, Monday through Friday on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Channel. Follow you on the X at Josh Hayes FS. Thanks so much for dropping by the show tonight, and I think I'll talk with you on Friday morning.
Yeah, we'll see you each and every Friday. Thanks, Balky. And thanks, March. Good talking with you guys. And Ferrell, always
Yes,
great to hear your guys' analysis. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. That is
Take it easy, Josh.
From the one spot tonight. And I think he's put together a strong team. I think, taking us through all of his picks, we're understanding sort of where he's coming from on this. Very on-brand draft for him, as Henry Mudo would tell you. And I think if we flip it over to the 12 spot, the other end of where Josh Hayes is, Brandon, this is where you were drafting last week. And I know you commented in the YouTube chat earlier about how you thought Danny Mueller is putting together a strong team here. Somebody else said that there was a lot of picks falling to him early on. Your thoughts on Danny Mueller's team from the 12 spot here?
He's putting on an absolute clinic, if I had to say it myself right now. It's just whoever said that in the chat earlier too, it does feel like a lot of these picks are just kind of falling in his lap. I mean, you're getting Travis Etienne at the tail end of the third. We talked to Pretty and Pink earlier. They were thinking about taking him at the 3-2.
Yep.
If Dalton Kincaid wasn't there, he can wait all the way to the end of the third and get a guy that's going to be a top 5, top 6 at the position as his number 1. But then he's just hammering the wide receiver position with guys that could put up, a lot of these guys could be top 24, if not top, low, floor type top 30 guys at the position at wide receiver. But then he starts dipping into the running backs and he's getting quality, solid running backs. CJ Stroud is his QB1. Obviously, you had to wait on the tight end position. And if you're going to wait at the tight end position as long as he did, Tyler Conklin is a guy that has gone 87 in targets at the position 3 years running now.
Yep.
And you're getting him that late in this draft, just waiting. I think that's a solid team, and they're putting together an excellent draft right now.
It would be pleasant if Tyler would start catching some of those 87s, but maybe this is the year. I haven't seen Pollard go this late, guys. Have you?
No, I don't think so.
Especially in this format. You would think he would even go higher than his regular ADP.
And it's RB34, and you're getting a lot of good positive reports out of camp the last few days from Titans camp too. So it's odd to see him fall back that far.
In the FFPC Best Ball Tournament over the last, I think, 3 days, I'm quoting Fantasy Mojo here, Pollard, the latest he's gone has been 9-11. He goes at the 9-12 tonight. So that was great value, obviously, on him there. And Darren Armani pointing this out from the YouTube chat tonight. Bear in mind, Danny Mueller has won this overall competition, not his league. He's won the overall Pros versus Joes not once but twice. So certainly a guy that's been very, very talented no matter where he's picking from. I hope he doesn't get upset at me for saying this, but I look at his draft. So ETN, almost a full round of value, right? I look at Ramondre Stevenson, almost a full round of value. I look at, we talked about Tony Pollard, right? We talked about, or we didn't talk about him. There was one more here that I thought was really good value. Maybe there wasn't, or maybe there was. Now I'm confused.
All of them are.
I'm looking at way too many drafts here.
I
think that's who it was. Collins ended up falling quite a bit. But if I could point out two of the picks that Danny quote unquote overdrafted, which I don't like the term overdrafted. You're just getting your guys. But obviously, we want to know what the high-stakes players are doing this year. Danny Mueller, heavily invested into his teams. Christian Watson at the 601. Normally ADP, again, I know it's not perfect, but the FFPC Best Ball Tournament, his ADP normally 801. So he went up and he grabbed Christian Watson. I think I'm looking at this right. Yeah, I am. And then Ramondre Stevenson, Hollywood Brown. Normal ADP of 606. And I get it. He's not making it back to you, but he did take him about a half round earlier. Watson is the guy in capital letters that really stands out to me, but Hollywood Brown here too, Ferrell. Very interesting picks, maybe telling picks on maybe a couple of who Danny Mueller's guys are this year.
No, Danny's figured it out. The Green Bay receiver that's going to rise amongst all the talent is Christian Watson. And guys, look what he did later on at his quarterback, stacked with his tight end. Perhaps he was leading us there the whole time. And Danny Mueller is a KFFSC champ as well, Balky.
Yep.
As you say, wherever he goes, he wins.
Yeah, and that's and Michael Quinzel's pointing this out too, is he gets CJ Stroud, again, about a round and a half of value there to pair with Nico Collins. Sometimes the stars align, the C's part, and Danny Mueller gunning for his third overall Pros versus Joes title this year. We shall see if that happens for sure.
I got strong competition.
Yes, you do. Absolutely. Absolutely. We're filling in the purple and the red here as we get into the mid rounds of the Pros versus Joes challenge. We're covering this here. Night number 4 of one of these teams winning a 2025 FFPC main event entry. Let's bring on our next guest. They've been picking from the 4 spot all night tonight. You saw Sean on the show about a month or so ago. He's made an appearance since then on some Fantasy Pros Championship live draft coverage. He's back tonight with his co-manager, Michael Young. Please welcome onto the program, Sunday Delivery, Team Sunday Delivery. It is Sean Green and it is Michael Young. Guys, here's what I'm going to do. Sean, I'm going to pitch you the first question. I can't adjust your camera, but maybe you can just to make sure you're filling in the screen on this one. So, Sean, there you go. That'll work. No, look at that. Even better. Both of them on at the same time. This is fantastic stuff. You guys are television professionals. Sean, welcome back to the program. How are you feeling about your team from the 4 spot tonight?
I like it. You know, we had a different strategy coming in, and it just went sideways. But, you know, honestly, happy with the way things fell. You know, getting Barkley where we did. We didn't expect him to be there. We were actually thinking about triple tapping the tight ends, depending on who fell back. But we just couldn't pass on the value of Barkley. You know, we liked Ingram in the 3rd. There's been a few players that we've had our eye on that some people have taken. JJ, he's taken quite a few of our guys in this, you know, but that's the beauty of this, you know, like you got to go get your guy and hope for the best here.
So you talked about doing a different strategy, and Michael, I'll throw this one to you. Who are some of the players that you guys missed out on because you either got sniped or maybe the structure of your team changed as you went on and got deeper into this draft?
Yeah, early on we thought about doing something kind of a little bit strange and out of ballpark. Just kind of going like really bully tight end early and just grabbing 3 of those top 10 guys. But the board didn't kind of fall that way, and we got Barkley, and so we just kind of changed strat a little bit. But as we've kind of went through the draft, there's been a couple of guys we've had our eye on, and it's a sharp room. Like they're not coming back. So it's one of those, if you see a guy, go get him because he's not coming back.
It's interesting, Sean, but when you have the 4th pick, you kind of know what you're doing there, but you kind of don't because you don't know what the first 3 picks are going to be. What did you and Michael talk about doing in the first round?
We actually saw the board, the first 3 picks falling the way that they did. I felt like Dan would take Bijan, and we had already settled. We had already settled in on Breece Hall, and in the second round, we thought we might be looking at Mark Andrews or something like that.
Now you are on the clock.
Oh, one sec, we're on the clock.
Yeah, I'm going to let you guys talk this out. Here is Sunday Delivery on the clock here at 15:04.
I'll make it back.
No, I don't even know.
I don't know. Yeah, at this point.
Yeah, we're just gonna do it.
Yeah, it's fine.
All right, not a sexy pick, but
you get your second quarterback, Daniel Jones.
I mean, he's got the weapons with Wan'Dale, Slayton, obviously Malik Neighbors. You know, if he can stay healthy, he still has a little bit of rushing upside, and hopefully we don't have to depend on him. You know, we got Dak, so.
And the other thing, too, little cheap stack here. Wan'Dale Robinson on the 14th and Daniel Jones on the 15th.
We were targeting Will Levis, but JJ sniped him from us.
Right.
You know, anybody we look at on the board, like, oh, this guy gone, this guy gone. Like, oh.
How much was the Evan Engram pick in the 3rd round influenced by seeing, you know, whatever it was, 6 tight ends off the board at that point?
Yeah, well, we actually like, especially in this format, Ingram. We think that offense is just going to take a leap forward. You know, they got BTJ and they got Gabe Davis, and, you know, they're going to stretch the field. And we think Kirk and Ingram are still just going to eat in that middle of the field. So we still see a really high target share for him, and he could replicate something similar to what he did last year. So we were going to, if him and Pitts were on the board, we were actually going to take him over Pitts anyways. So when Pitts went, it was like, all right, that's fine.
And then you knew, obviously.
Yeah, he made it easy for us.
Let's talk about that 1209 pick, Jaleel McLaughlin. Maybe the most talked about backfield over the last week in fantasy football has been that Denver one. Javonte Williams ended up going to Mauricio Gutierrez at the 10:02 tonight. You guys get McLaughlin at the 12:09. Sean, I'll throw this one to you. How excited were you about that pick?
Honestly, that was a guy that I really liked. We talked about it, and we both agreed on that. Historically, the Joe Lombardi, Sean Payton offense, they throw the ball to running backs. And, you know, obviously we know Javonte can catch the ball. You know, he seems like he's healthy now in camp, and, you know, there's a lot of hype surrounding him. But McLaughlin, he's not going away. He has a role in that offense. and I think he's going to catch passes. And in this format, just like we targeted Jaylen Warren earlier over Najee, you know, when you had me on the stream a month ago, we talked about that.
Yep.
I kind of leaned Najee, but when we had Barkley and Brees, we felt like we're getting the pass catching from Jaylen Warren, and then again with Jaleel McLaughlin. You know, in the next round, we took Ray Davis, who might get some goal line work. You know, I don't know what his role is going to be, but there's a lot of steam about him as well. Obviously, we know Cook's the guy in their backfield, but I'm optimistic with Ray Davis.
Yeah, we're trying to target guys with contingent upside right there. That's you kind of swing for the fences. They're going to have a standalone role. And then if something happens to the starter or whatever, you know, you could see some really big spike weeks from them.
Right.
Michael, I know that one of Ferrell's favorite picks for you guys tonight was Joshua Palmer at the 1104. Not necessarily contingent upside. We heard the argument from the Pretty and Pink guys in the first hour tonight about Ladd McConkey, but we can't forget about Joshua Palmer, can we?
No.
Yeah. He's one of the guys. He's going to be on the field. He's going to be catching passes. They're going to throw more than what people are, you know. It's not 1920 anymore. You can't just get away with the ball 17,000 times. So they're going to have some pass volume, and he's going to be one of the guys. He's going to be out there in 2 wide receiver sets, you know. And he's one of the only ones on the team that has rapport with Herbert coming back this year, anyway. So we like that pick and that value in that round.
Yeah, I was thinking about that guys earlier. Wouldn't it just blow everyone's mind if they rolled out in week 1 and threw the ball 40 times? You know, and we just
would you even be surprised, honestly?
No,
Harbaugh likes to play those games.
Yes,
we're going to run the ball, you know, and he comes out and throws it 30 times.
It could happen.
It could happen for sure. And one of the things that has happened tonight, and guys have been waiting for this to happen, and then finally we get some separation in the Pittsburgh backfield, and it's not Najee Harris going first tonight. It's Jaylen Warren going at the 809. To you guys, Najee Harris ends up going at the 906 tonight. But clearly, Sean, you guys like Jaylen Warren better than Najee Harris. Why do fantasy players continue? I mean, it's just like Harris's ADP is always higher, yet everybody I talk to likes Warren better. You guys matched it up with what you did in the draft tonight, taking him over Harris.
Yeah, that was one of those things where it was like, who do we want? We actually did consider taking both of them at the turn, but we're like, we don't want to invest that much. You know, we need a quarterback. And you never know how these rooms are going to fall. And we've seen how, like, we were hoping Herbert would make it back to us to get a little stack with Palmer. So it was just, for us, we liked Warren because of the pass catching ability. And I think he's going to get rushing work as well, but he's going to be their primary pass catcher. And that was something we really liked because we have Barkley and we have Brees Hall, who are 2 locked in, you know, 3 down backs.
Mm-hmm. Addison, Michael, no concern with the suspension, or do you guys feel like, okay, at the 10:09, it doesn't matter if he gets suspended or not? We like that pick there.
Yeah, that was clearly a value pick. It's like when it's that late, even if he does get suspended, I was looking at some of the Twitter lawyers, if you will, and there's some language in the CBA that it's like, you know, it's going to probably be a 3-game. It's just win, you know, and in the round 10, what, you know, with Hawkinson missing the first part of the year, he's going to be second on the team in targets right away. And, you know, O'Connell likes to air that ball out a lot. Mm-hmm. So, you know, between him and Rashee Rice, it's like we probably have the riskiest wide receiver room here. But, you know, we're swinging for the fences.
But that's what you have to do, right? Because if you know, even if one of those guys pans out, all of a sudden you have a leg up on a lot of other people in the league. You guys are on deck here right now. I'm going to have you make this pick on the air. Prescott and Daniel Jones are the quarterbacks for Sunday delivery. You're looking at Brees Hall, Saquon Barkley, Jaylen Warren, Jaleel McLaughlin, and Ray Davis at running back. Receivers are Zay Flowers, Ridley, Rashee Rice, Addison, Joshua Palmer, Wan'Dale Robinson, and Evan Engram and Jake Ferguson are the tight ends. Go ahead and talk through it, guys. Who's going to be the pick at 1609 for you?
Go back to receivers. That's a good question. That's what we're trying to figure out.
I feel like sometimes when I have players on the clock, I should switch to my PGA voice. Like, 1609 here. All right. Pull out about a 3-yard. You're looking at the wide receivers. But it's a rookie receiver that you guys decided on here, and a player who's reunited with his college quarterback in Troy Franklin.
They have the chemistry, you know, from college, and who knows in that Denver offense? I mean, again, Sean Payton obviously wasn't a fan of Russell Wilson, and Bo Nix was his guy. Even before the draft, they were talking about it, and then they really, according to the press conferences and all the stuff I've read, they really liked Troy Franklin, and they felt like they got a good value on him in round 4, I think it was. So it's like, at this point, let's take a shot, get a rookie. You never know. Never know who's going to get. And late round, late in the season as well, he might hit.
Well, and we don't know with the rest of the room anyways, too, with, Sutton, is he going to stay healthy? How's he going to look from his hold-in type situation? And then you have Mims, who we all liked last year, but everybody but Sean Payton, who drafted him, seemed to believe in him. And it's like, what if Franklin just comes in and he just takes that number 2 role, and Mims is still just kind of like the downfield stretcher kind of guy. So, there's definitely contingent upside here with him as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's the poster child for contingent upside.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The poster child for the $1 million winners, the FFPC main event, Sean Green, Michael Young, perhaps not. We'll find out. Guys, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Good luck the rest of the way in this draft. Good luck in the FFPC main event as well. So good to have you on. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you again soon.
Appreciate it. We'll see you guys in Vegas.
Thanks,
you got it. See you in Vegas. Absolutely. That is Sean Green and Michael Young. By the way, you can follow Sean on the X at _green_1. That's THA_green_1. We are powering, going through the 17th round of the draft right now. And I think that it's oftentimes I like to look back on interesting starts, Brandon, in these drafts to see how these teams are filling in the cracks. I think we haven't talked about the stack hunters tonight too much, Dan Williamson and Bradley Stalder, but you look at their squad, running back right away. Then they start hitting the receivers. What do you make of how they filled in the running back cracks with Lloyd, Chandler, and Herbert now?
Well, that's kind of the thing. You have to start.
And Allen.
Yeah, you have to kind of really start digging into the position a little bit. The longer you wait, especially at the running back position, you're going to get in a position where you're starting to get in guys that are going to be on the other side of a split in the backfield. So it's kind of like upside hunting to a degree there. So you're really more or less, you're hoping that the wide receivers and their tight end that you have in the room there is really kind of helping to propel your team forward. But when you're getting a guy like Marshawn Lloyd, supreme amount of upside there. You don't hear anything but positive reviews coming out of Green Bay in that camp with Marshawn Lloyd and what they're expecting out of him this year. But then Ty Chandler's a guy that's really gotten forgotten about in the Minnesota Vikings backfield. Performed well down the stretch last year. Obviously, they bring in Aaron Jones in free agency, and everyone's expecting that he's going to be the bell cow in the backfield there, but that's strictly not going to be the case with Aaron Jones. Ty Chandler is going to mix in, and Ty Chandler is going to get used, and I think that's a solid pick, especially this late in the 11th round, getting a guy like that.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Jones Chandler thing too. I think I'm much more likely to choose Ty Chandler in drafts this year than I am Aaron Jones, just because of the draft capital investment. Ferrell, one of the things, and you know this over the years too, one of the things I always look forward to, and this is not a dig on Jeff Mans, it's not, but one of the things I always look forward to is to seeing how his Pros versus Joe's team turns out. If there is one pro that has always embodied getting your guys in this format year after year, it's been Jeff Mans. I've been kind of frankly disappointed tonight. We have not seen a whole lot of fireworks from Jeff Mans from the 9 spot tonight. I don't know if it's a case where he's playing ADP a little bit more than he normally does. He is still getting guys overvalued, to a certain point, but none of these where it's like 2 or 3 rounds ahead of where they normally go. It's been a very lucid, very quiet draft from Jeff Mans tonight, but I do think he's put together a pretty solid roster from the 9 spot. Ferrell, what do you make of Jeff's team 17 rounds in? Excuse me.
See, Brandon, that's what happens when you don't get Ty Chandler on your team. Balky just immediately goes for you. He says there's no Ty Chandler. Balky, it's hard for me to say. I agree with you in some ways. It's like all these guys are good players, but do they make sense to me as a unit? And we had one of the guys earlier say, "Well, you love your team when the draft's over. Everybody loves their team." No, right. I've drafted some teams that I've absolutely had great disgust for, and they've done better than some that I really, really like. So it's hard. It's just really hard to say within the format of the FFPC. And earlier we talked about, that some of the Joes were not familiar with the FFPC. Well, what the hell are they doing over here? You got to get, that's the first thing. If the guy's running, the guy's never played fantasy football, he's going to say, well, what are the rules? So right. You got to know the rules. But Jeff Mans knows that, so we'll see. Maybe he'll come on and tell us how great some of these players are.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it from the standpoint just like of structure. I mean, he's got 3 tight ends in Kelsey, Schultz, and Hurst. I mean, I think that's really solid. Burrow, Stafford, and Minshew. I can get behind that given on the draft capital that he invested in. And the playmakers at receiver early, Samuel, Neighbors. I mean, Christian Kirk, a guy that I've always liked, no matter what team he's been on, no matter what his quarterback situation is. That's another player. And then obviously Jonathan Taylor kind of has to work out, but because Kamara and Zamir White, I think, come with some question marks, but that's why you're getting him in the 6th round and the 7th round.
This Jahan Dotson down here is a player that I believe it should be drafted earlier than we're.
Yeah, I mean, that goes with the whole the Commanders wave that should be picking everybody up in drafts, and it didn't happen with Dotson tonight as Mans makes a pick here. A guy who just made the pick right before that and who's been drafted next to Jeff Mans tonight is John Bauman. I want to bring him on to the show right now, ladies and gentlemen. From the 10 slot of tonight's draft, it is John Bauman joining the program right now. John Bauman, who's drafting this team with Gordon Chappell. Did I get Gordon's last name right, John? Is it Chappell?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, good. So how do you think about this team as you have 2 picks left in the draft? How has the team come together?
Yeah, we're pretty happy with it. We Gibbs was kind of a target for us. We kind of knew he was going to be an option for us. We knew we were going to go hero RB. Laporta kind of just fell to us. We weren't really thinking he was going to be there for us. So once we took Laporta, we kind of all were in on getting golf late. You know, it's going to kind of decide our team right there. So we started tapping wide receiver, and we liked where the value fell, and we're pretty happy with our start.
Yeah, and John, getting back to the Lions, you know, you talk about like that's going to determine how this team goes with Gibbs, Laporta, and Goff. Boy, that's a pretty good offense to be in business with. So if it depends upon those 3 guys, that's kind of a good way to do it.
Yeah, Gordy's a big Lions fan. I'm a Bears fan, so it was I had to put my personal feelings aside a little bit, but that's what we said. We love golf. You know, indoor. He has like 14 dome games this year.
Right.
That first 5-6 weeks of the season, I mean, it looks great. I think the first 4 weeks before the bye, the Lions should be putting up 35 points a game. So we're expecting them to explode in the beginning of the year. So we kind of had to go that way once we took those first 2 picks.
So, you know, you being a Bears fan and Gordy being a Lions fan, you guys could kind of broke bread together with the DeAndre Swift pick at 803, somebody that you guys could both get behind, given that he's worn both those colors. How do you feel about the Swift pick as running back 23 tonight on your squad?
Yeah, we're pretty happy with it. I think Swift's a guy that's getting under the radar a little bit. I don't think he's gonna carry the team, but I expect a lot of dump offs. The Bears are going to be smart with Williams. I think Swift's going to get a lot more run. I'm a big believer of following the money, and they paid him, so they want to turn on that investment. So they paid him. I think he's going to get a lot of dump offs and catches as being a playmaker. He's not really your true dynamic running back, but he's a playmaker, and I think the Bears are going to put the ball in his hand, and I think he's just going to give us a lot of those PPR points.
I think that and Ferrell will chime in on this too. I know he loves the Pittman pick at 403. I love the Godwin pick at 603, and you slam in T. Higgins between them as well, along with Ayuk. John, there's something to be said about people sleeping on Ayuk, people sleeping on Higgins, obviously because of contract situations. But you guys decided to strike while the iron's hot on those guys, and now they become your 1 and 3 receivers as top 30 options. And
yeah, we love them.
Quite frankly, I mean, Ayuk was like a top 12 guy last year. Higgins would have been higher, and he played the whole season too. Right. That little glut of receivers right there, Ayuk, Pittman, Higgins, Godwin, I just would have been dancing.
We were talking about how we were underrated, how that group is. Ayuk, once again, he wants to get paid. You know, money's a motivator, and I think he's going to have an outstanding year. Pittman, he wants to make that next level and be a guy that everyone – talks about in that elite tier. He's had weeks to do it, but I think he's motivated to put there. And Godwin, I think he had 2 touchdowns last year. Moving back to the slot, I don't see a world that Godwin doesn't throw up 6-7 touchdowns this year. We're stoked that they fell to us right there. I think that's an elite receiving group, especially not even starting that to the 3rd round.
John, as I look at the second half of your draft, where again a lot of the home run swinging begins, do you have a favorite pick out of those? Think about guys like Judy and Gus Edwards, Josh Downs, players that you drafted here, Watson, Okonkwo, Roshan Johnson, Bigsby. I know you probably like Roshan Johnson because of your
I like Roshan. My favorite in that group, to be honest, is Chig. He had that great rookie year. Everybody, last year in FFPC, he was flying up the boards last year, and I just have this gut feeling this is going to be his year. He had a lot of big plays last year, a lot of missed opportunities where, they just didn't connect. That would have been 50-yard touchdowns. His year last year could have really been explosive if he could have connected on a couple. So I really could see Chig being a guy that provides a few big plays. Tank, I see some touchdowns happening for him this year. I think they're going to be smarter. They want to be a playoff team. They're not going to try to eat up ETN a lot. He's a smaller guy. So I see some touchdown upside for Bigsby as well. And once again, swinging for the fences. So we're pretty happy with that.
I also think, I don't think this is necessarily a swing for the fences type guy, but Freiermuth is the tight end 12 at the 7-10. That's another guy, proven player coming off a down year. That could be a nice value for you guys too.
Yeah, we love that one too. Gordy was really high. He was a guy that he's really high on. Being a Bears fan, Fields likes the tight ends, and I think Fields is going to get in there, and I could really see a lot of action to Freiermuth. He had another guy that had that great rookie year and was kind of up and down last year, some injuries. He's a guy that wants to play for some money as well. So I could see a big year for him.
You guys are going to be on the clock shortly or on deck right now. Just to reiterate the draft so far and the team construction so far for John Bauman and his co-manager from the 10 spot tonight, Gordon Chappell. You're looking at Jahmyr Gibbs, Swift, Brian Robinson, Gus Edwards, Roshan Johnson, Tank Bigsby in the backfield. Wide receivers are Ayuk, Pittman, Higgins, Godwin, Judy, Downs, and Chark. Tight ends, Laporta, Freiermuth, Okonkwo, and then the quarterbacks are Goff and Watson. John, what are you and Gordy discussing now?
We're trying to figure that one out right now. We're just looking for any kind of upside play. I think we're going to tap a wide receiver here. We're just looking for a guy who can get loose and provide a few big plays for us. If we have to rely on these guys to win the league, I think we might be in trouble.
Right. Yeah, you should never have to rely on it, but oftentimes players will come through and be big time, performers for the squad that can carry you up. But yeah, you're right. You never want to count on them here. So the pick, 10 seconds to go here. The pick at
we're going to go Rondell Moore.
Rondell Moore. All right.
Yeah, I think he's a guy that could, maybe provide a big play or two.
A guy who's been providing big plays for us this entire interview, John Bauman. Very good stuff tonight, my friend. Good luck. Enjoy the last remaining round of this
has been fun. I look forward to hopefully seeing some of these faces in Vegas.
Absolutely, for sure. We will see you out there, my friend. Good luck winning the main event this year, too.
Hey, I appreciate it. You guys take care.
Yeah, you take care as well. John Bauman drafting with Gordy Chappell from the 10 spot tonight, taking Rondell Moore live on there. Merch, it's one of those things where it's like, if we're right about the Falcons if fantasy, big fantasy is right about the Falcons, Moore is an excellent 19th round pick in a best ball competition.
Yeah, I mean, that wide receiver 2 spot really is kind of wide open down there with Atlanta right now. Obviously, a lot of people are pointing to Drake London being a high value target there, as well as Kyle Pitts. A lot of is to be expected from those two guys. But outside of that, you've got Darnell Mooney. He's had a 1,000-yard receiving season under his belt before. But Rondell Moore's a guy that's just never really been truly utilized to his capabilities. And, get him there in Atlanta, find some creative ways to get him the ball. And I think there's a little bit of upside there. But really going and looking at this team, my favorite pick, y'all talked about Freiermuth there. My favorite pick there with this team here is Brian Robinson, running back 33. Mm-hmm. That's an absolute steal of a pick there at that point in the 9th round. I think that's going to be a running back that's going to actually carry his roster more than DeAndre Swift, who he took around earlier.
One of the teams we haven't talked about, and I know you guys can't see the whole board right now, but I want to go look at Team 6 here real quick, Patrick and Tim Lynch. Because this is another team that started off receiver heavy, right? Their first 4 picks, all receivers: Tyreek Hill, Drake London, DK Metcalf, DJ Moore. Then they get Rashad White, Brock Bowers, Jaden Reed as their 5th receiver before their 2nd running back. And then they pound out Jonathan Brooks, Najee Harris, Jerome Ford, high upside, contingent upside guys, as Michael Young was calling them before. They get those guys in the mid rounds. Caleb Williams, Geno Smith, and Darnold at quarterback. Noah Fant, Rashad Bateman, Elliott. Ezekiel Elliott goes off the board. Pour one out for Turk, who will be on the broadcast tomorrow. Quentin Johnson, Tyrone Tracy, Greg Dulcich, Kenneth Gainwell to wrap it up. As I say those names, Ferrell, do any of those stick out in your head as like, yeah, those are players I'm after this year too, Balky?
Yeah, and you start going receivers, and you marry into that philosophy, and they look really good, and then you're just consistently playing catch-up. If I'm going to start heavy in any one position, it's going to be running backs. And then I'm going to, because I see a lot of receivers down there. This team could be as competitive as any of these others, but, they get on a roll. Sometimes I think you get a little carried away with yourself. Did they start with 5 receivers?
They started with 4, but they did take their 5th receiver before their 2nd running back.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just a little bit overkill, guys. But you know what? That's why we play the games.
That's why we play the games, indeed.
Exactly.
Mert, as we're only 2 picks away from being done, is there a player or a pick tonight? I mean, I know you just talked about how you were a big fan of the Brian Robinson pick at running back 33 at the 9-10 tonight. Is there anything else that stood out to you? I mean, I know we were talking about the tight ends that how fast they were going, and Bob Lung really pushed it at the 208 with Kyle Pitts. Anything else that stood out to you from this draft as far as trends or picks go?
One that we really didn't touch on in too much detail was over there with Team 4, Sean Green and them, Rashee Rice at wide receiver 42. Yeah. That's another situation right now that it's fluid, because I mentioned it on Twitter earlier this week. It's really gotten to the point with Rashee Rice where I'm not expecting to see a suspension levied at this point. It's gotten too close to the season. You're not hearing anything, and the NFL's been really, really kind of prompt as far as their response that they're going to let the legal process play out. And that's that at this point where Rashee Rice is being pushed out until December at the earliest. And at that point, you're playing through the entire season, and you're getting him at wide receiver 42, a guy that even, if you have him on the field for 15, 16 games, he's likely to put up top 24 numbers at the wide receiver position, and you're getting him that late after starting off a little heavier at other positions. That's an amazing pick to get that late, especially in best ball format, where you have that flexibility to kind of wait on these guys to come in and play for your squad.
And Michael Young was talking about that too with Rice and Addison. If those guys don't get suspended, boom, that's already built-in value right there. And you don't need the contingent upside, right? Because those guys should play big roles on their teams from the get-go. They don't need somebody to get hurt. If they do, if it happens, then great. But if it doesn't, they're still going to be significant. We have wrapped up Mr. Irrelevant tonight. Josh Hayes, Josh Hayes is not irrelevant, but Josh
still
Hayes
picking on Josh.
Yeah, I'm
still got him.
He takes Eric Gray tonight as Mr. Irrelevant at the 2012. Brandon, I'd ask you what you think about Josh's draft, but I know there's going to be no RotoBaller on RotoBaller crime tonight. You probably loved it.
Well, no, I won't go that far, actually.
All right, somewhere in the middle. Here we go.
A little bit in the middle there. I didn't really get a chance to talk to him too much while we had him on earlier, but obviously he mentioned he started off with McCaffrey, Kyron Williams, and it's not really his traditional start, but he felt like he was kind of forced into that because of Kyron Williams falling to him. But because you start off, you're at the end, and you start off running back like that. Looking at his roster and the receivers there, it feels like you're kind of chasing that position at that point. You're behind the curve as far as getting guys, and you're going to have to reach to fill that roster spot. And I think that's what he kind of had to do in certain spots. He wound up getting some decent value. Cortland Sutton a little bit further on down the board. Demario Pop Douglas, is a guy that I got in my draft the other night from the other end of the board, who's I do like there as well. But outside of that, it's a little bit top heavy at that position. And if things were to kind of break the wrong way for him, I think he's going to be in a tough spot with how he built that roster at the wide receiver position.
I think just real quick, Ferrell, I'll let you chime in a second. The Deontay Johnson pick I really liked. I did like the J.K. Dobbins pick at 1301. That was one of my favorites. Elijah Mitchell, I think where he's going this year is really good. But I think when you have a guy like McCaffrey and you protect McCaffrey with Elijah Mitchell, I think that's really nice too. And the A.T. Perry pick, we didn't really talk about it at all. I do like Shaheed. But A.T. Perry in the 17th round, just to see what happens. Again, in a contest where only first place gets paid off, I like that pick as well. Ferrell, you were going to say something. I'm sorry.
I finally got a Raider and pick number 19 with Lobby. And that's, there's been good reports about this one. I think he came on the show after the Dobbins pick. We jinxed him a little bit, threw a pall of disgust over his draft. He did get Mitchell. I'm not much of a Carr fan. I don't necessarily like what he did the rest of the way out. So that's my biggest complaint about his team. Not so much about structure, but I was hoping to see someone between 14 and 20. Maybe it is Dylan Law, but I'm not sure I like this team.
That's his guy. He's a very big Dylan Law guy.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the Raiders are too. It just depends on how they're going to use him. For a player drafted that late with the club, to make the team and contribute is a victory. And sometimes the coaching, we interpret things differently in the fantasy football world and what the coaches are having to say about it sometimes. But yeah, I think he's going to be a very good player.
We as not even Americans, just fantasy football worldwide drafters, we love carnage. We love the bloodbath, right? And when you get 6 Joes and 6 pros banging against each other for 20 rounds, things get bloody at the end, right? Like everybody's bruised. Everybody just makes it through at that point. Maybe that happened to Josh. I don't know. Dude finished top 10 overall last year. He won his league. So I think he's going to be just fine. There's a lot of, I think team 3 had a strong performance tonight. We talked about Danny Mueller, who didn't disappoint us from the 12 spot. He was really good. The biggest disappointment of the night was probably Jeff Manns, and that's might be a good thing because I thought he drafted a really, really good team because he wasn't reaching and getting his guys that he, compared to how he normally does. So I thought there was a strong draft from him as well. A lot of strong drafts in this one tonight, guys, and I'm glad you guys were both here for it tonight. Brandon, thank you so much. Excuse me, I'm getting verklempt as I'm saying goodbye to you guys. Brandon, thanks so much for filling in for Terp tonight. We will continue to listen to the Woo Fantasy Podcast. We will continue to follow you at Roto Superstar on the X and check out everything you're doing over at RotoBaller. Excellent job tonight, my friend. Thank you so much for coming on.
No problem, man. I'm lucky to fill in whenever you need me.
Absolutely. You're on the short list for sure. And, of course, Ferrell, Elliott, KFFSC.com. Get over there and register now. Main events filling up fast, live in Cincinnati, live in Louisville, and then, of course, all the online stuff, all the online goodness that's going on over there, Ferrell. I will talk with you again tomorrow night. Thank you so much.
See you, buddy.
That is Ferrell Elliott. That is Brandon Murchison, my co-host for the evening tonight. Really good stuff from them as we go hard on the Pros versus Joes coverage each and every year. We might have set a record for most guests tonight. So I do want to thank Ferrell Elliott, Brandon Murchison, Darren Armani, who popped on tonight. Remember, the overall champion finally getting a prize this year with the FFPC Pros versus Joes. That awesome belt that's up at fantasymojo.com and at Fantasy Mojo on the X as well. I want to thank the FFPC, our producer and mutual friend, Rob, audio engineer, my best friend, Bryce. Most of all, our viewers and listeners. Thanks to those who participated in tonight's show by coming on. Gino Donnie, Daniel Wright, Bob Long, Josh Hayes, Sean Green, Michael Young, and, of course, John Bauman. Great stuff from all of you and a great draft from each of you as well. We will be back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern time. It is the Champagne League, the Christopher Walken Continental Finest Champagne League that is going to go off at 9 p.m. tomorrow. The Joes include Todd McIntyre, Curtis Van Dan, Seidenfaden, Brian Jervelin, Ian Hubbard, Brad Petrie, and Darren Larson, former KFFSC main event champions, Nick Thompson as well. And they'll be competing against the the pros, the industry pros, featuring legendary upsides, Pat Corain, RotoWire's Jim Coventry, Establish the Runs, John Daigle, Fantasy Alarms, Andrew Cooper, Mike Shope, and Adam Krautwurst from the Deep End Fantasy Football Podcast, and Justin Boone from The Score. Remember, that starts at 9 p.m. tomorrow. If you're looking for some action tonight, the FFPC main event has live and slow drafts going off each and every day over at myffpc.com. We also have multiple Fantasy Pros championship drafts that are going off every day. We have one that I'll be commissioning here in about 10 minutes or so. Still has 3 spots available. That's going to fill, so jump in there right now and try to win $1 million in either one of those contests, $1 million grand prize for the second straight year in the Fantasy Pros Championship and the FFPC main event. If best ball is more your game, maybe it is because you watched best ball tonight with the Pros versus Joes. We have a best ball tournament that costs $125 to enter. a $300,000 grand prize there. And then our Superflex Best Ball Tournament, $35 to enter, and you can win a $100,000 grand prize for just $35. Dynasty startups available. Empire Dynasty startups are available. They're popping off each and every day. And then check out the Kentucky Fantasy Football Championship at kffsc.com. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. You are magical. We love covering this because of all the interaction we get from you on YouTube, X, Facebook. It's been tremendous, and we will do it again tomorrow at 9 p.m. with Night 5 of the 2024 Pros versus Joes Challenge.